Sal Jafar, CEO of ESG. Please show your appreciation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So many stakeholders across, for the transition into EVs. Don't forget that with all those very high targets that we have, and we need really to look at it from a broader perspective with all the stakeholders. We have quite a unique panel, I must say, one of the longest to cover all the different perspectives. So I would really like to welcome all our basically panelists. We'll start with Goresh, please. Ali, please. Vinay. Yes, Vinay. Andre.
Can you try and sit underneath
Brigitte
your photograph, please?
And
as you come
Moza.
on? Thank
Where's
you.
Moza? Yes, sir. Moza is... With pleasure. Ladies first. I always encounter Moza at the different events, including in Azerbaijan at COP29 and all others. So it's always a pleasure to cover their developments leading the transition, including EVIS 2025. We'll start with everyone to introduce himself, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gaurish Wagle. I work as the manager for sustainable master planning and transportation at Masdar City. Been there for the last 10 to 12 years. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ali Al Samurai. I work for a government entity. Before that, I worked for institutions like the World Bank and the DC government.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is André Kaufung. I'm the Global Managing Director of the China Association, and we are collaborating with 350 industrial companies when it comes to charging topics and challenges.
Hello everyone, I'm Moza Naimi, Director of Productivity and Demand. So basically I'm managing the national demand side management in top consumer sector here in UAE, part of Ministry of Energy Infrastructure. Hi.
Hi, morning everyone. My name is Vijit and I'm leading new energy mobility efforts at ADNOC Distribution.
Please.
Good morning. My name is Vinay Kumar. I'm the Director of PowerTech Mobility. We are a homegrown company in the UAE for the last 35 years.
Thank you. I will start with Engineer Moza. Basically, you have a very bullish strategy across the board. This is not the first EVIS that we've been attending. Let's start with with the coming 12 months in terms of implementation across the UAE. Would you please tell us more? What are your top 3 priorities, if you would like to start with?
Okay. So, as I mentioned before, that we are in Ministry of Energy Infrastructure are focusing on the top consumed sectors here in UAE, the top emitters, since the transportation is I think the second top emitters after the industry. So the green mobility or shifting from the normal mode of transportation to EV is one of our priorities for the last 4 years. So we do have the targets to set the targets for everyone, for the passenger cars, the buses, the trucks, to move into the EV by end of 2050. It's a long term, but here in UAE, it's actually 5 years from now. So we have a target of focusing on the government fleet in the next 5 years to shift into 100% EV in UAE.
With which year? What is the target?
In 2030.
2030, 100%,
2030, 100%.
For the government.
Yes, it's part of the commitments to the net zero strategy launched in COP20.
That's for the passenger vehicles.
Yes.
Okay.
And definitely we do have the targets of improving the infrastructure of the EVs to improve the customer and across UAE. So we do have a targets on national level of 10,000 charging points in 2030 and 30,000 points in 2050. So this is a huge targets to follow. Of course, not only by ministry, we are only leading the efforts, but with the private sector, with the CBOs, with the financier, I think everyone will collaborate to make it done in 2050. Yeah.
Well, very, very bullish targets indeed. And after your talk now and His Excellency Engineer Sharif, I believe you are very much on track. 2030 by UAE standards is just around the corner.
Yes.
Thank you, Engineer Moza. Basically, we'll jump to Vijit. Yes, ADNOC. We saw your stand. With Hamouda bin Hamouda and all that, and you're covering across the region, across the UAE. It's not only Abu Dhabi city as this. So tell us, please, about the numbers where you have today in terms of geographies as well, and what is next in the coming 12 months.
So right now, our focus is on the go fast charging. So we are focusing on all the 8 key routes which we have mapped, because ADNOC Distribution is also, distributing fuel from last 50 years.
Okay.
And we understand, the demand and supply in a very, very good way, how the traffic movement across the. And one thing which we have been, all of us are talking about is range anxiety, right? So within the urban areas, you have, sufficient charging places, whether it's mall or at home, at office. But what we have realized that on the highways, it's a problem.
Yes.
And we are trying to handle that problem. We are trying to tackle that problem in the best way possible. So that has been the focus. Right now, as of December 2024, because we are a listed entity, so I can't disclose the latest number. By end of December 2024, we have 220 fast chargers across UAE.
220 operational by today.
Yes, yes.
Most of them fast charging.
No, everything is fast charge. Okay. We are not into slow DCs. We are, most of the network is 150 and 90% of the network is more than 180 kilowatt.
Interesting. And you apply the charges, unified charges across UAE, announced recently in October.
Yes, because right now, if I see on a daily basis, last year we saw 100,000 transactions across my network. Yeah. And we have good pulse of the customer, what they want, how they are behaving, because ultimately customer insights, customer experience and behavior is going to drive this industry. So from that perspective, what we have realized that people still prefer fast chargers.
Yes.
And that's also aligns with, the ethos of UAE, because it's a modern, tech-savvy, sustainable, oriented country. So that's one bit of it. And secondly, apart from fast charger, people want the accessibility, on the highways. And the third thing which is critical for them is reliability. Because if I'm going there and there's one charger available and it's not working, or there is a long queue, people aren't going to like it. And that's the feedback. Based on that feedback, we are working, all our new installation are at least 6 charging points. And we are specifically focused on to improve the uptime of our network.
Yeah.
We want to make it a world-class uptime, reliable from a reliability perspective.
Thank you. Vinay, you are into installing charges and servicing charges. What are the main challenges that you are encountering across?
One of the biggest challenges is explaining to a client that a charger actually needs to be serviced. Especially if the moment you move away from AC and you jump into DC, they are complicated systems. Each manufacturer has their own KPIs, which we need to meet to ensure that there is 100% uptime of that equipment. Saying that, we actually represent 2 international brands. One is ABB, the other one is Givis. Both are from Italy. And both these chargers we've seen have a really good back-end software where we have access online throughout the life of the charger. We can find out what the faults are. And on top of that, you should also have a very strong technical service team on the ground. So we are very responsive. We have a 24-hour service team.
Yeah, thank you. Gorish, basically at Masdar City, I'm a regular visitor at IRENA, being member of IRENA and all that. So we have seen some charging stations. The number is increasing. How are you catering to all the stakeholders now there are 3 locations, if I'm not mistaken, at Masdar City, which is a big city. How are you spreading and what are the new services that you are bringing and how can others learn from you in this regard?
Thank you. We, as a sustainable master plan, has always focused on a low carbon development, and as a result of which I think which every development has started doing now is we started with a philosophy that you can change the mode of the vehicle, but you basically can't change the number of vehicles. So our focus has been to have a transit-oriented master plan. We already have that as the base of the master plan. So if you think about a master plan as a layers, the base layer is the land use, which we have segregated in such a way that we've identified and agglomerated public common gathering spaces like community areas, parks, etc. Then the next layer comes is the land use where the buildings are developed, and then a transportation network which supplements. So we've got the metro, we've got the LRT, which are basically government running modes of transport. As an internal, we have the GRT or the group rapid transit, which basically we are testing various modes of electric vehicles. We started with Navya, which is GRT, which is battery operated. Then we've moved on to Navya. And now we have the latest 3rd generation, which is called with an Estonian company. So in principle, what we are trying to do now is we strictly enforce that every building that comes into operation has to follow the DOT standards and plus. So the DOT standards, ITC standards have migrated from 2% to 5%, and we are working closely to increase it. So we're saying that that's some incentive that we give you. Second is we try to focus that every public area has an electric vehicle charging stations, like the ADNOC charging stations. 2 of the charging stations are integrated in the parking, which serves the largest parks in Masdar. Okay. There is an urban park, which has another one, which is served by Tesla. Yeah. And third thing is, which is regulation is not yet there right now, is for public parking spaces. So the shared parking or this overflow parking, even the public parking spaces, we mandate that 5% of them should have parking. So one of the parks, which you are aware.
So are you planning to start implementing?
We already implemented. So every public parking also, the ITC mandate is primarily for buildings, but we've gone beyond and said even the public parking has to have 5%. And that's why an area of around 200 parking spaces has 11 charging stations minimum. So 5% of it is basically...
Of all the parking slots need to be EV chargers?
No, 5% of the parking area.
Yes.
So that's spread across all the master plan.
Yeah.
So every parking area we develop, we ensure that 5% of that is...
And what is the plan implementation target?
We've already implemented at 5%, and the target is to reach 10%.
Oh, okay.
And so even in the new residential developments, we are mandating the same, that the shared parking is done, yeah.
Thank you. Ali, you come from a government entity. We know about your background. UAE is a very rapid, basically the pace is very, very fast, and we are seeing so many developments across the 7 Emirates, including Abu Dhabi, including Al Ain, the Emirate, across the Emirate of Abu Dhabi and beyond. There are so many projects, so many basically housing projects, new commercial projects, and so many infrastructure projects, such as the rail, Etihad Rail, such as the new metro stations in Dubai, such as the rapid train Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and all that. So how do you see that the EV infrastructure need to adapt its services and to cater to all those developments that are taking place in the coming 5 years?
Well-articulated question. I'd like to zoom out first. Let's zoom out. There was a study by Bloomberg's NEF that projected all metropolitan areas on average spend circa $120 billion a year on EV infrastructure. I was very happy to see Mr. Rashid's CapEx projections for EV infrastructure to be already 130 in Dubai. So, it's in typical Dubai fashion, way ahead of the curve. Kudos on that. But, and just the challenge, I think, when it comes to how a city evolves from a master planning perspective is this expenditure happens in parallel to, not in an integrated fashion with urban master plans. So you get that siloed budget, and you get another siloed budget, say, for housing or for, infrastructure development. So you get this, that's a risky concept here. Mitigating that, I think there are three areas we have to think about. The first one is really about thinking about pre-zoning charging hubs or electric vehicle nodes, or, these are the stuff where first, last mile, ASBs, it's a form of electric mobility that's in between. It's in between what an EV is and what a BOT is. It actually stands for Autonomous Service Bot. Thinking about all of those, way ahead of, not as an afterthought, but way ahead and in tandem with land use planning, way in ahead of how urban form manifests itself, is one way to address this. The second one is thinking about, integrating how transit, freight corridors, and micro-mobility logistics come into play in a proactive way. I give you a case in point here. We have in the region, in most of the world, you have an entity that overlooks transport master plans, and you have an entity that overlooks what they call an urban capital master plan, where in fact they're two sides of the same coin. They shouldn't happen in a siloed fashion. But the third most important point for me, at least as someone who spent about half a decade in a government budget agency, is the incentives on ROIs, on what the return on investment that means. On average, when there was a research done by actually a program applied by the European Commission in 2023, the conclusions of which were just released last year, that found when you integrate electric vehicle infrastructure and electric mobility as part of the urban form, you save, on average, per user about 40% on CapEx. So just think about from an expenditure standpoint, you save. From a planning, think about the overcost, the overhead charges that you're going to think about, just about replanning and adjusting and readjusting because of the siloed fashion. And finally, I just want to leave everybody with these really important metrics, 25 and 95. I'll start with the 95 because it's an easy number to remember. 95% of our cities are planned for streets, and 95% on average in a metropolitan area, a car is parked. It's just an incredible oxymoron. We plan our cities for something that's only going to be active 5% of its lifespan. Really amazing. That's one. 95% of, what was I saying? 25 gigabytes of data per hour is produced by electric vehicles, which is something we haven't tapped into. Yes, we're talking about clean energy. We're talking about how we're going to mitigate oil for lithium. Great. But we're not talking about the most precious oil of the 21st century. It's data. And a Tesla produces 25 gigabytes per hour a day. And Bloomberg and WRI concluded that a level 5 AEV, which is a Tesla that drives itself without a steering, produces 20 to 95 terabytes, 95, the number again, terabytes per day. Just to give you some context before I hand over, that's enough data, that's more data than we acquired from the earliest signs of mankind to 2003. It's equivalent to as much data that an autonomous vehicle, electric vehicle will produce in one day. It's just staggering numbers. And we're not really thinking about that from a master planning and infrastructure perspective. How do we monetize that oil, which is the data, to serve the cities, to serve the residents?
We will talk about in the next basically phase about the public-private partnerships and the government's strategy in this regard to optimize that for the well-being or for the good of expanding EVs and green mobility, not only in terms of passenger but also for the buses and all that. Andre, well, we are in the United Arab Emirates, and we love bringing the world's best practices, and we excel at it at the highest levels. How do you foresee, or how do you see, rather, the landscape of EVs in terms of the world standards and in terms of bringing the world's best practices?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, every region is different, and there is always an advantage of being not the first mover. If I compare best practices from maybe first markets like, I don't know, Norway or also Germany or North America, there are a lot of lessons learned which were already taken, which when you move a bit later, which you don't have to do the same mistakes. And especially when it comes to investment into infrastructure, it's always this chicken and egg question first. Where are the cars? Where's the infrastructure? And I think when I follow the discussions here on the EWIS, we are now here with China as a knowledge partner for, I think, 4 years right now. And you follow the discussion, there is a certain understanding from government, but also from industry to invest together, because EV adoption will only happen if you have a doable infrastructure for this, for the different use cases, fleets, passenger cars, but also trucks and buses. And that's where I see it more as an advantage. And I think to convince the customer, you need to have a good charging experience, first of all, and then you need some incentive. I don't talk about you need to, I don't know, pay for the car as a government or something, but you need to have some incentives to go into that new technology. Can be, I don't know, free parking, can be easy access to something. So there are a lot of, let's say, low-hanging fruits where you can support the acceleration. And when I see the region out of the CHA-in view, it's then more also an investment view. You need to have security in your investments. So you need to have the right technology, and that's basically what we provide. We receive a lot of questions from governments. Is it this standard? Is it this protocol? Is it this kilowatt, megawatt, let's say, scenarios? And I think the good thing for the industry is as soon as you have an association and governments on the table which are committed to certain steps in the protocol, you have a certain security to release the investments from a private sector but also from government sector. And that's what we see with the CCS and MCS protocols. It's now standard, it's standardized in a lot of countries in the world, but I don't know, we are not promoting anymore the plug itself, it's more the protocol. It's like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. There are new features coming also to the market where new business models are launched and coming up, and that needs also to be secured if you invest in infrastructure, which is a lot of money, that you are that you have the possibility to have upgrades in bidirectional charging, in buffering and storage the energy and making business models out of that. And that's, I think, the big advantage for UAE and other regions, because no one, to be honest, in Europe or North America thought about that when the first charging infrastructure was installed. And now it's a big chance to think about also what is not in 2 years, and do we reach the target in 5 years of passenger car adoption. It's more what kind of industry and ecosystem is coming out of that and the possibilities, and what is in 5 or in 10 years, not only when it comes to adoption of EVs, but also when it comes to business models and industry development.
We'll talk about this point next, because don't forget the UAE has adopted the unified charging rates across the Emirates in order to entice and to create a financial or a business viable ecosystem for the charging industry. Engineer Moza, well, we have now around 100,000 electric vehicles across the 7 Emirates, all across. We are close, right? We're 90,000 now, right?
1,000, around 1,000, I think.
What do you mean, 100,000?
No, the 100,000, you are talking about, sorry.
The number of EVs, electric vehicles.
The number of EVs, we have more than 147 to be specific.
147,000 electric vehicles, yes, across UAE today, on the roads.
It's a great jump, actually, in the last 4 years. So we started in 2020 with 8,000, and in 2023 it was 118, and officially by end of last year it was 147,000, which is a great jump. Yeah.
Right. And well, that's a great number. We're pushing ahead with all the different players in EVs and the charging infrastructure. I just came from the United States. I visited 4 key states, and I can tell you that the infrastructure of UAE, I own a Tesla myself, and that I bought here at EVIS last year, and I travel a lot, and we can see that in terms of the infrastructure in the UAE is above average by the tier 1 countries. So I can see, including Florida, Texas, New York, and other states, not California. So in terms of buses, so the numbers are increasing for EVs. Now the RTA in Dubai just announced the first in service. So basically you can ride an electric bus in Dubai. Also Abu Dhabi is following suit and all that. Are we getting ready for buses and trucks as well? And what is the strategy at the federal level in this regard to facilitate the infrastructure of those key components and players?
Yes, Sal. Actually, last year we started this discussion with the transportation authorities across UAE and the business owner who wants to be in the market of developing an EV trucks. Yes. So we don't want anyone to be behind. So we do have a target for each one of them until 2050. It's not higher as the passenger cars for sure, because passenger cars we have a 50% of the targets, but we do have 25% for trucks and buses, which is also good. We have a different modes, so it's not only EV, so we do have EV, plug-in hybrid, the natural gas, the hydrogen as well, so we want to be open for any new green mobility mode.
Are we getting ready? What is the strategy in terms of the infrastructure?
And for the infrastructure, actually, as a Ministry of Energy Infrastructure, we are responsible for this. So we did our best in the part of the strategic level, the targets, the standardization for the how to implement the EV, the standard specification, technical specification for the EC and DC and all of this, it was part of our role as a Minister of Energy Infrastructure. In terms of the developments, we will try our best to cover, but I cannot do it by myself as a ministry or as a government. So we need the key players. We are depending on the CBOs. We do have 5 officials across UAE. I think UAE, one of them, they are doing a great job. So the development, it was hard last year, but it's getting easier and easier. Yeah. And I think in the future it will be much...
And that's exactly my second question to Vijit. You are across the 7 Emirates, including Emirates of Dubai. And how are you getting ready to cater to the needs of the buses and trucks, especially in remote areas, from here to Saudi Arabia, Wefat, Ruwais, Al Ain, also Fujairah, Dibal Fujairah, Masafi, Ras Al Khaimah, and all that. What is your strategy in this regard to cater to the needs in the coming 3-4 years in terms of EVs as passengers and in terms of buses and trucks for the different players, individuals and basically corporate?
So from that perspective, I think we had multiple discussions with various off-takers, right? So I think it's a demand pushes the supply. Where we are, as I said, that our strategy has always been super fast charger, which are required for supporting such kind of infrastructure across Emirates and also on the key highways. And we are keen to develop. So right now we are already doing a pilot testing with the ITC on hydrogen buses, for example. That's kind of an initiative just to see the future of hydrogen mobility. And they are testing buses which are already running in Abu Dhabi Island on 2 key routes, because ultimately ITC has a plan to do the full green across Abu Dhabi Island at least by 2030. So we are promoting, we are collaborating with all the stakeholders, but honestly from a business perspective we have not received until now such huge requirement where we can start developing an infrastructure dedicated for buses. So the mega hubs and the big hubs which we are planning right now, there is a concept of dedicated charging infrastructure for buses and trucks going forward. But it is again it's a push and pull kind of approach where we are happy to plan it right now for the future requirement. But again, it also depends upon the, the actual demand when it's going to happen.
Thank you. Vinay, we had basically last year some turbulent weather or challenging weathers. How are you getting ready in terms of the infrastructure to ensure that it doesn't get severe damage or undermined in this regard?
Currently, we have installed over 1,000 chargers in the UAE, all across the UAE. We can say we have probably 60% of that is actually DC chargers, and these are all private clients of ours, communities, apartment complexes, government entities. And most of our clients all own the asset themselves. So one of the bare minimum we advise them is to go for a third-party insurance, which covers the asset, the bare minimum of the asset. In terms of our service team, we always ensure if we get notification of certain weather changes, like last year, most of our OEM clients who are car manufacturers who have their showrooms over here, they all unfortunately had a lot of basement parking, and some of their equipment were completely damaged. And because they already had the insurance coverage, we were able to ensure that we give the report and they replace the charges.
What is the percentage of insured charging stations? I guess the public ones must be insured for different corporate reasons. What about the tier two, being individuals or the small private ones?
To be honest, if you look at more of the, for example, if you talk about Altaya Group is one of our biggest clients. All their facilities are completely insured, so they are aware of the insurance thing. But we do have certain private clients who have one or two buildings who have installed it, and
That's
we have advised,
that's exactly what I said, the private ones.
So we have advised them to go for it because some of these locations are managed by the Owners Association also. So they don't see the need, and some of them have actually had to pay to replace the charger completely. So now the second time around, they're more smarter and they have the insurance. And we do connect them with some of our partners who help them put together a good package depending on what their initial capex is.
Thank you, Vinay. Gorish, basically, Masdar City, we are in the UAE. We like to bring the world's best practices. What are you bringing at Masdar City as a pioneer from the world and to the world in terms of solar, for example, charging stations? What are we bringing in terms of fast chargers and their capabilities towards the vehicles available today? What are you bringing for buses, for example, in case you would like to have electric buses in the foreseeable future? And also, for example, Al Masoud and Tadweer signed an agreement for electric trucks for the garbage or waste collection. How are you planning to cater to those needs in the coming 24 months?
So at the master plan level, we've clearly identified development into various zones. So one is the mixed use or the high density zones. One are the low density zones, which are for residential. So as regards to the high density zones, we've clearly identified the city into 9 zones, and each zone at least should have at least one common parking facility which is powered by EV, which is an EV charging station. So it is an equitable distribution. So our whole idea is to reduce the point-to-point vehicle transportation also. So and in each zone, we've ensured that it is part of a community facility, a building plot, or an open space. Yeah. So that's one part. In the residential part, what we've done is we've said that mandatory 5% has to be public. And in terms of infrastructure, we've already identified that for earlier we used to go for low speed charging stations, which I think if you go for a high speed charging station, it's at least 4 times the power. I mean, that is required. We've started accounting that in our infrastructure plans.
Yeah, but for example, players like Careem and Uber, and also they need to have their infrastructure. So you're catering to the residents or to the individual users. What about the corporate and the fleet the needs
So generally, corporate is taken
that
care.
serve Master City?
Yeah, so the corporate are mainly the office or commercial office, which are taken care by the building itself. Like we work closely with MAF, who have developed
The
a
city
mall.
center.
Yeah, a mall in Mastar City. They have created rooftop parking, and rooftop parking is served by PV. So we have certain regulation issues right now that every building is allowed to be served by its own renewable energy, whereas the public infrastructure is not allowed as of now. So moving ahead, what we've done is some of the definite plots, like the ADNOC plot which is there, one of them has dedicated parking EV PVs. And so what has happened is, in future, what we are planning to do is integrate the EV PV infrastructure within. So all our public shading structures are PV ready, and that we are working closely with the authorities to allow us to basically integrate that. So for that, we are working towards a PV power generation license. We've got a license of around 55 megawatts. And we're trying to enhance it to include the public charging stations also. I think UAE's biggest challenge is moving towards low carbon economy and net zero strategy by 2050. And I think that regulation needs to move up, which is currently missing in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi.
Thank you. Ali, again, in terms of...
And just one last point is, I think ITC or government has mandated that all public transport will be hydrogen fleet. So we still have to work towards how hydrogen can work independently.
Yeah, it is in the
and we have
long-term future, inshallah.
We've collaborated with ADNOC for the first hydrogen station,
Yes.
which is basically moving, all public transport all over the world is moving towards hydrogen as a source of energy. So since you asked about how you're tackling with future generation, that's what we do with public transport, which is a strong
Thank
input.
you.
Yeah.
Ali, government, public-private people partnerships. Again, in the UAE, we excel at it. We saw the RTA with all the programs, Dubai Metro, and all others. How do you consider basically the best strategy to develop the public-private people partnerships to advance EVs across the board?
I mean, they're especially useful if you're looking at a share of expertise. So for example, if I work in a mobility company and I'm looking at investing in hard infrastructure that I'm probably not very familiar with in terms of there is a risk of delivery on my side, looking at a form of PPP as a public entity is probably in my best interest. I'll give you an example. Some of the best mobility agencies in the world is in Hong Kong. So think about MTR. 80% of their proceeds, of their net profit, comes from an initiative that they have done, which is a JV with the private developers. So what they've done is they looked at their services, they looked at how to develop around it, but they really don't have the expertise. So bringing in the right kind of partners to sort of establish what's called a BDOT or a PPP allowed them to thrive in their business. So it all depends on the risk factor, right? How do you structure, whether it's a JV, whether it's a PPP, what kind of a PPP is it? It all depends on what your risk is. If you can consolidate that in-house with lower risk, you probably do not want to think about PPP, but that's rarely the case. Most of the public projects require partnerships, and for most part with partner agencies who are in the public sector. In the trending sector, especially in the field of electric mobility, you are probably starting to look at the private sector as well. There is probably an alignment that we will have to do with, for example, MOEI, ISCAN, ITC, which is ADM now, all of these players, RTA, but then there is another conversation to be had. It's probably going to be a messy one with the private sector to make sure that the developments serve first and foremost the city, and secondly, the business.
Thank you. Andre, you come from Germany, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
I would really like to answer a question asked by our dear MC to Engineer Faisal before about the different Emirates and UAE. Well, it's exactly like Bavaria and Berlin. All right, so let's put it simple. I know Germany extremely well from across all boards, or like Alberta and Ontario. I've been here for a very long period of time, so I proudly call UAE home, and I know it inside out. We are all brothers in the UAE or across the Emirates, but also each emirate has its own characteristics and its own local basically parameters, exactly like Bavaria and Berlin and Bremen and all that. How do you basically advise the different stakeholders across the world and in the UAE to unify and to get closer together in something specific points for the advancement of EVs in the UAE and across the region? For example, even in Saudi Arabia, we have the central region, we have the western region, we have the eastern region. Each one has its own characteristics, like any municipality on this planet, or any county in the US, they call it county, or in Germany, and all that. How, within your own practices, how do you recommend, basically?
Yeah, good question. It's if you compare it, it's not only the geographical approach. It's in the beginning. It was when we founded CHAR in like 12 years back. It was already, there was no need in that times, back in that times, that an OEM, a car manufacturer, was talking to an energy company, not really on a value chain point of view. And first of all, you have to break through this, and that's what we see here as well. I mean, here are people from infrastructure side, from car importer side, from government on the table. So you need to have, let's say, the status of all involved stakeholders. We need to solve it together. Without that, you can be the best association in the world. If there's no need from the people involved, it will not be a very good association and a not very good approach. So we have this, and this is the same in Germany and in the US and in UAE. You need to have the stakeholders from different part of the industry, from government, different stakeholders who see a value in talking to each other. That's the, let's say, base ground, I would say, to start that. And then, of course, it's all about the people. So it's the same in Bavaria and Berlin. They talk to each other, or they don't talk to each other, and they talk really different languages in terms of language, but also in terms of business culture, ethics. And I'm not an expert, but I guess it's in a lot of areas in the world the same. So I think the best case is to align them on the same targets. Means what is our goal? What is our vision? What do we want to reach? And respect everyone's, let's say, maybe independency. And that's what we do normally. The technology is the base layer. So if all agree on a certain, let's say, ground static technology, then everyone can add on his local flavor or his technology flavor, his USP for the customer. It's not about we're all doing the same product, but we are using the same technology. This will save money for everyone. This will save time. I mean, we are in a hurry to adapt this, and this gives security to customers, to investors, to markets, and also to governments to, let's say, make the right investments in the right directions. That's what I see as the key points. And then, let's say, the local flavors, if it is Abu Dhabi or Dubai or Saudi or it's Bremen or it's, I mean, if you see Europe, there are a lot of countries, if it is France or Germany, it's still important, but it's the second row, not the first row.
Yeah, so before you came from your travel, including Germany, to the UAE, you studied the market here, and of course you know about the global practices. Now you are leaving UAE back home, so what are you bringing? What are the main assets that you believe other countries should follow suit from the UAE? Previously here in the Middle East, we used to go to Europe or to the West or wherever, and to bring the world's best practices. Now it's vice versa, because UAE, including Masdar City, and all that have world-class top basically practices. So what are the top practices that you will be bringing from the UAE to the world?
I would
and that you saw and witnessed in the UAE?
Sure, definitely I bring back, you feel this strong, let's say, commitment and alignment, which you feel here, and you have let's say, I'm searching for the right word. You have a market where you have from CPO and charger side, it's not that fragmented like in other parts, which is from a rollout for infrastructure. If this is also a government task in the main cases, it should be much easier. So that's what I take back, if there is a strong willingness to do so. And you can shorten the time of discussions, and there is a clear commitment also on the targets. This is something I can bring back also to executive board and to our members, which are asking, is it the right timing to invest now in the Middle East or in GCC? It's definitely, it feels like, I don't know, a lot of other markets where we have been active, like maybe 10 years back, maybe others 5 years back, maybe 3 years back. But with what I said in the beginning, with the big advantage, don't do the same mistakes like we did before, which costs us some money, but basically which costs time to adapt then to the right path.
Thank you, Andrea. Engineer Moza, basically the UAE is very flexible and very agile in terms of regulations, federal and local, and you always bring the world's best practices, and also you share those practices across the GCC and beyond in the region and the world. So what do you think the top 3 points or legislations that you will be adopting and you will be introducing across the UAE?
Sal, you know already that we do launch the national EV policy.
Yes, this is one. All right,
so definitely recycling the batteries for EVs will be something
just announced yesterday.
Yes.
Here at EVIS.
Yes.
So
this is
one.
something, yeah.
Right.
And also the recycling for the batteries itself.
Absolutely.
And what we did announce yesterday was the
Recycling.
bi-directional
Yes.
EV. I think this is the top 3 priorities we are working on the policy level, yeah.
Yeah, so you think in the coming 12 months?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any other point, any other wishes from the ministry that you would like to have?
Hopefully we are on the right track, but this is
we are in the UAE, so the bar is very high.
Expectation for sure, but this is an invitation for everyone. I mean, anyone in the financial sector, from the private sector, from the commercial sector. If you think there is any enhancement should be done from the governments, we are open to that. And if there is any new technology, we are here to provide the environment to adapt this technology if it's going to help us in the long run for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Moza. Vijit, you at basically ADNOC Distribution bring the world's best practices. AI is very advanced, like Engineer Moza said, in terms of technology and in terms of investments, green investments. So we had a big commitment at COP28, as you know, from the local banks with the pledge and all that. And also you seek, basically, first in terms of the adoption of technology, including AI, how would that facilitate the implementation, all right, and facilitate the process, one, and two, in terms of a green finance, what is your strategy?
So I think just before taking these 2 points, just a quick remark, right? As we said that, we all are working towards a vision, right? And which is very clear. And guidance from the ministry and everyone is quite clear where we want to be. As my colleague said that we are also working with Masdar, we are working with MOEI, we are working with OEM. So ultimately, all of us are working together towards that dream. Second aspect is, all the stakeholders who are involved, everyone has a role to play. So, from government perspective, it is expected they are going to enable the whole process. From a service provider perspective, we need to innovate and focus on customer-centric approach because ultimately it's customer whom we are catering to. And from customer perspective, as user perspective, we think the adoption will increase and then collaborate, right? So we are collaborating with Charin, we are collaborating with Masdar, MOEI. So, that process already began. Now coming back to on the technology part, we are also piloting a lot of, new softwares. Again, there is a risk of we are completely technology agnostic. So we want to try all these new AI-related technologies, or supporting my maintenance, preventive maintenance, and so forth. My charging point management system. So all those things are either getting tested or piloted so that we can find the best technology. And the good part for us, we already have 10 to 15 years of other markets tested technology already. So we need not to reinvent the wheel. The thing is, we have to see what is best suitable for this part of the world and implement that. Regarding green financing, yes, banks are, right now, I think the focus is mostly on, providing financing to the EV users to improve the adoption, and which is a great plus, because that is going to ultimately, the whole ecosystem is going to be benefited. But yeah, hopefully in future, we'll also, work exclusively with banks on the green financing. But I don't think that's the focus right now. The focus is how to improve the adoption and do it right. If you want to, invest so much of money, time, and energy, let's do it right.
Thank you. Vinay, how can we develop the EV charging ecosystem financially? So how can we make it more lucrative? What's your advice for the different stakeholders?
I mean, I'm the last P in this entire ecosystem, which is private, and I have dealt with both the sides. So
that's why I asked you the
yeah,
question.
So one of my biggest, one of our biggest concerns from all our clients is that how do we monetize it, right? Now, we are facilitators, which means we work with the government to ensure a particular product is installed following certain rules and regulations. And a lot of our clients who are private players, big family offices over here, they really are, they have the budget, they're very excited to go ahead, but there are still a lot of paperwork back end, which I feel needs to be the same way how UAE makes it so easy for us to open up a business in 24 hours. If we have the private sector, which is ready to, do a fantastic job, I feel the government should, take it and say, guys, perfect. You guys have a really good plan. And when that changes, you see a lot of EV adoption, because we deal with OEMs certain OEMs are struggling to actually sell EVs, and they are going back to selling hybrids versus, going back to ICE also. And that's the reality on the ground. And, I feel I should be the one to say it. It is a lot of new companies are entering into the market, but the thing is, a lot of the customers who are everyday, workers who really want to adopt, they are scared because they don't know where they can get their next quick charge, or just take the private, your taxi, the limousine companies. We deal with 4 of the biggest fleet operators in the UAE, one being Blacklane, and all their, their fleet operators, they struggle to find charging outside of their depot. So these are all real challenges on the ground, which, we are more than happy to speak to somebody and, put, a roadmap in plan, but, this is the reality.
Thank you, Vinay. We need to make it more lucrative. It's an ongoing, basically, a thing and challenge or journey that we need to undergo to make it, as the market is getting bigger and bigger, the EV charging. So thank you very much. Any questions from the audience, if I may ask?
Well, can I just say, first of all, can we show appreciation to Sal and his amazing panel, taking up the whole stage? Wow. You could almost make a football team out of this, Sal. That's amazing. Do we have any questions? We have got time for one question. Okay, we've got one at the front. Thank you.
It is more of a comment than a question.
Okay.
My name is Dimitrios Melikos, U.S. Heritage Power Sports, manufacturer of EV motorcycles here in Abu Dhabi. And I am a company that is founded in Masdar City. So, for Mr. Goresh, thank you very much for the infrastructure that you have in place for my EV car. It's the first place I've seen anywhere in the world where I have such access to be able to simply charge my car. Whether it's a charger itself, whether it's a fast charger that is at ADNOC, or the very simple fact that you have designated parking spots with AC plugs that I can simply put in my car charger into the wall. The difference that this simple thing makes in my day of not having range anxiety, but knowing that at Masdar City, when I am there to do my work, I can simply plug in my vehicle without complications, waiting in queues, and knowing that there are so many of them available. I have never had to wait at any time to plug in my car to the wall in Masdar City parking lots. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, wow.
Thank you for the compliments. I think
Yeah.
that's what I was explaining about equitable distribution. Don't put them where it's most convenient to make money or for you to operate, but make it where it's most convenient for the people to use.
Yeah.
And that's what we work on.
And
Yeah.
not even a compliment, it's an observation, it's
Yeah.
the reality. It's simple and it works.
So, were you surprised that the head of the Masdar City fan club was in the very audience where you've been talking? What a
I'm
coincidence.
pleasantly shocked because I'm more used to listening to criticism than positive appreciation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. One more time, wonderful. Thank you for our wonderful panel. We have